Sri Lanka's most powerful news brand.
A very good evening to you. You're watching Primetime News on News First. I'm Chaturanga Puarachi.
And I'm Rahna Farooq. Let's start off with a look at your headlines for tonight.
Russia to close doors to Sri Lankan agro products including tea. Cabinet paper submitted requesting 2 more coal plants. Suyani Vijay Vikrama appointed as the new State Minister of Provincial Councils and Local Government. Rejected nomination lists to be presented before courts.
On to those stories in detail now. Russia will place temporary restrictions on imports of all agricultural products from Sri Lanka, including tea, from December 18th.
The Russian agricultural safety watchdog had taken the decision after it found an insect in the packaging of one consignment of tea from Sri Lanka. According to Reuters, tea from Sri Lanka accounts for 23% of Russia's tea market. Sri Lanka's main tea exports are to Russia, with a revenue of 19 billion rupees generated during the past 9 months from exporting 25 million kilograms of tea. What is most significant of Sri Lankan tea exports to Russia is that the Russian Federation has imposed a maximum price of 783 rupees per kilogram of Sri Lankan tea. Data from the Sri Lanka Tea Board records Iraq, Turkey, Iran, United Arab Emirates, Libya, Azerbaijan, Syria, Chile and Japan as the other top buyers of Sri Lankan tea.
We generated a greater revenue in 2017 compared to 2016 through our tea exports to the Russian market. Russia was on the top of our export list. However, at present, Turkey is on top, followed by Russia. There is a high demand in Russia because the Russians flavor Ceylon tea. We had a setback in the past because of the fall of the Russian economy. Our exports dropped in 2015 and 2016. However, as our prices are anyway high, our revenue for this year is relatively high compared to last year.
According to Reuters, the Russian agricultural safety watchdog Rosokrosnadzor had taken the decision to impose restrictions after it found an insect known as copra beetle in the consignment. The insect has been discovered in consignments of other agricultural products imported to Russia from other countries. Imports resumed after a temporary ban on those products from the country of origin. The United States of America has imposed restrictions on commercial and non-commercial shipments of rice into the US from countries where the copra beetle is prevalent.
The copra beetle is also called cabinet beetle. Infestations are difficult to control as it has preference for dry conditions and low moisture food. There has been instances when this insect was found in tea samples in recent years. Such incidents are reported when tea is not packed properly and when tea is held in storage with low moisture food. This leads the way for an infestation. However, 6 years we did not have any such reports.
A statement from the Ministry of Plantation Industries says the detection of a single specimen of an agricultural pest was the reason for Russia to impose the restrictions. The statement says the ministry is of the view the specimen discovered in the packaging material may have remained in the shipping container concerned following the use of the container for the transport of grain on a previous occasion. The ministry hopes it can solve the matter immediately and says Minister Navin Dissanayake will visit Russia as soon as possible to work with Russian counterparts to resolve the matter. The Russian representative of the Sri Lanka Tea Board has held discussions with the Russian agricultural watchdog on this matter. The Sri Lanka Tea Board says the progress made in the investigations will be known thereafter. The Russian Association of Tea and Coffee Producers are holding discussions with the Russian government body over the possibility to introduce a special regime and special control over the tea imports from Sri Lanka instead of imposing a ban. Today is International Tea Day, and as you witness, Russia is now imposing restrictions on Sri Lankan agricultural products, especially when it comes to tea. One tiny insect, the size of around 3 millimeters, has caused this situation where the Russian Safety Regulatory Authority, when it comes to agricultural products, has imposed this restriction. Now the ministry here in Sri Lanka says one single insect found inside the cargo container, which may have been used to carry grain before, has caused this situation. Now Russia's main produce is wheat, and when an invasive insect comes into their country and affects their cultivations, it would have an adverse effect on their entire economy. In addition, Sri Lanka's tea industry mainly depends on glyphosate, which is used as a weedicide. Now, a decision to ban glyphosate was taken some time ago, and it was banned by the government. The sale and the use was banned after there were claims it was the main cause for chronic kidney disease. Yet the scientific causes for this is to be investigated. Now, the minister has insisted the use of glyphosate and claims that without glyphosate, the tea industry in Sri Lanka is facing a very dark future. A study has shown that the water that flows in these areas where kidney disease is located comes from upstream, and that gets filtered along the way when it reaches the people. However, right now in those areas, it is mainly concrete structures that carry the water to the respective areas. Hundreds of thousands of people in Sri Lanka, mainly in the Central Hills, depend on the tea industry. And if the tea industry does not have a solution, and if situations like where countries are imposing restrictions on Sri Lankan tea arises, the tea industry in Sri Lanka will have a very dark future. Now, we at Newsfirst spoke to Ramaz Chanturiyai, the Director General of the Russian Association of Tea and Coffee Producers, and asked him how this would impact the Sri Lankan and Russian tea markets. This is what he had to say.
You know that the problem is, of course, quite serious for us because Sri Lanka is one of the biggest tea suppliers to our country. It's approximate the share which Sri Lanka has in the last 2 years is around 23-25%. It is huge amount. It's around 40,000 tons of tea, good quality tea. And if the situation will, let's say, not be solved in coming months, I think we will have a big problem in Russia and also in, of course, in Sri Lanka and also in the world market, because that kind of tea and such a big amount is not possible to buy at one moment. It's really a big problem for everyone. So I think that we should now do our best. From our side, we will have some plan to do some things to let's say to make this problem less serious. But also Sri Lanka have to do everything to reduce this negative things from their side.
A cabinet paper has been submitted seeking approval to construct 2 coal-powered power plants in Trincomalee and Norachole that would generate a total of 1,200 megawatts.
Ministers Dr. Saratha Munugama and Ranjit Simbalapitia had forwarded a joint cabinet paper on the 23rd of November. This cabinet paper suggests that high-efficiency coal power plants that would generate 600 megawatts should be constructed in the Foul Point area in Trincomalee and in Norachole. The document states that a land mass of 600 acres is required in the Foul Point area, while 500 acres of land is required in the Norachole area for the construction of these 2 power plants. The cabinet paper also says that the power plants will use clean coal that is considered to be environmentally friendly. In addition, the cabinet paper recognizes the importance of cultivating a forest cover in the area to reduce the emission of carbon dioxide as a result of burning coal for power generation. The cabinet paper, which advocates the creation of these 2 coal power plants, further states that the government's policy is to generate 50% of the power requirement using mega hydropower plants and renewable energy sources by the year 2030.
Now, this government has promised a green-blue economy through the 2018 budget. This government has asked people to actually move into economically and environmentally friendly methods to supply the electricity that is required by them. The long-term generation plan of the Ceylon Electricity Board has been rejected a number of times by the PUCSL. Then the experts come and say that there will be an electricity shortage by the year 2020 in the near future. Now, if this situation is not resolved, there will be a shortage. The PUCSL and the CEB also agrees with this. With that happening in the background, the PM's office came forward and said that we will be looking at liquid natural gas or LNG power plants in the future. In that respect, there was talk about this Kerala-Pittiya power plant, LNG power plant being established, being put up to generate 300 megawatts of power to solve this issue even in the short run. Now, what happens to these discussions regarding the LNG power plant in Kerala-Pittiya? What we, from the outside, if you take a look at what's happening, is that we see that some form of invisible power, invisible hand is trying to mess things up in terms of this LNG power plant moving forward. We also see there is no proper response, a proper positive response with regard to this Kerala-Pittiya plant moving forward. Now they say that there has been a cabinet paper that has been produced to create 2 more coal-powered power plants in the country. And they also say that they will be using clean coal for this purpose. Now, what is this clean coal that we talk about? Clean coal is a system or a mechanism that is still in testing stages, even in countries, developed countries like the United States of America. It is still at a testing stage. So, whether this will be applicable to the people in our country is a big question mark, and whether it will be less expensive and whether the final unit of electricity will be going to the consumer at a low rate is still a question mark that we have to find answers to. The budget 2018 introduced a carbon tax in the few days ago. Now, why this happened was that President Maithripala Sirisena went to COP21 in 2015 and made a promise and said we will reduce the carbon emissions in our country, and the people have agreed. The people have agreed to pay a carbon tax in the country. Now, is this what we want our children to look like in the future? By going into this coal-powered power plants, a lot of other people are also receiving benefits. I will drag your attention to that as well. If you go into liquid natural gases, yes, it is expensive at the outset, but it is definitely environmentally friendly. But when you go forward, when we have crises like at Norotchole, we've seen how the Norotchole power plant breaks down from time to time. Then the respective authorities at these places of power have to buy power from these private companies, especially the Lanka Transformers Limited. So when they go into this spot purchasing, various people in these high places get their benefits, get their cuts, and they all feel happy. So that is why all of these officials do not want to go into liquid natural gas projects or renewable energy projects, and they also want to linger with the coal power plants. We saw recently how the cricket team had to play a game at the New Delhi stadium. This was due to the carbon emissions, high carbon emissions in the New Delhi area. Is this what we want in our country? Do we have to wear masks in our city if we are roaming around, if we are getting from one place to other? Is this what we want in our country? So the people who have the ability to make decisions, don't they think about the environmental impact that these coal power plants bring to the country and the health adversities and especially the environmental adversities in the country? With all this happening, the CEB employees also engaged in a strike action. Let's have a look what happened there.
The strike is being staged opposite the head office of the Ceylon Electricity Board. The hunger strike was launched against the slashing of bonuses and annual sick leave allowances. The CEB Joint Trade Union Alliance says that an injunction was obtained against the decision taken by the management to award a special allowance 3 times the usual daily wage to engineers who reported to work during the strike action.
There is massive suppression taking place within the Ceylon Electricity Board. This mafia is being maintained by a handful of members of the Engineers Association of the CEB. While slashing the bonuses of the employees who worked, the Board of Directors approved a decision to award 3 times the daily wage to the engineers who reported to work during the strike action that was launched against the massive corruption that took place within the CEB. We requested court to issue an order against this decision. This is a fraudulent allowance. The court has informed the CEB to immediately halt these payments.
Allegations are being levelled against certain officials of being involved in this.
A handful of members of the CEB have a business mindset. We request this small group of engineers who are dragging the CEB down to the grave not to suppress the rights of the employees as well as the rights of this country. If our demands are not met, we will consider launching a continuous strike action from Monday.
Accepting nominations for 93 local government bodies concluded yesterday. According to the Elections Commission, 523 nomination lists were submitted for the 93 local government bodies. 23 of these lists were rejected.
The nomination lists of the Sri Lanka Podujana Party for the urban councils of Maharagama, Panadura and Veligama were rejected, along with the nomination lists for the Pradeshya Sabhas of Agalavatta, Mahiyangane and Badulla. The Sri Lanka Freedom Party's nomination lists for the Dehiyattakandiya and Padyatalava Pradeshya Sabhas were also rejected. The Kenya nomination list of the United National Freedom Front was also rejected. The United Left Front's nomination list for the Nivithigala Pradeshya Sabha as well as the Democratic United National Front's Munaragala Pradeshya Sabha nomination list were also rejected. The Samanture and Aliadi Vembu Pradeshya Sabha nomination lists of the ITAC were also rejected. The TULF's nomination lists for Korale Pattu, Four Gravits and Trincomalee have also been rejected. The ACMC's nomination list for the Akkarepattu Municipal Council as well as the ACTC's lists for the Trincomalee Municipal Council and the Four Gravits Pradeshya Sabha have also been rejected by the Elections Commission. Meanwhile, the nomination lists of 4 independent groups for the Akkarepattu Municipal Council, Eravur Urban Council, Mahiyangane Pradeshya Sabha and Navidanvali Pradeshya Sabha were also rejected. We prepared the nomination lists in the correct manner. However, the list was handed over by a contestant and not the designated person. We will legally resolve the matters that needs to be resolved.
We will go before the court to state that the rejections are unfair. We believe that some lists have been rejected illegally.
If it's rejected, then it's rejected. When GL Paris is the chairman of the party, it is natural that they commit mistakes like messing up the date. He is not a practical person. If you drop him off in fort, he wouldn't know how to return home.
6 nomination lists prepared by professors and lawyers have been rejected. They can't put the correct number of contestants, or they have the incorrect ratio of females. They have made other silly mistakes as well. However, they speak of accomplishing big tasks.
The Elections Commission reiterates that if political parties calls for the local government election to be postponed when challenging the rejection of nomination lists, the Commission will be forced to wait till a ruling is issued to conduct the election.
Journalists questioned members of the joint opposition during a media briefing held today.
We gave the UNP a good punishment in the Vayamba election when they expressed similar sentiments. Back then, John Amarathunga was younger. Now he is a pensioner. We also said things similar to what Amarathunga is saying. Even we lost after having a government.
Digamadulla District UPFA parliamentarian Sriyani Vijay Wickrama was sworn in as the State Minister of Provincial Councils and Local Government before President Maithripala Sirisena at the Presidential Secretariat today.
Sriyani Vijay Wickrama, who represented the joint opposition, met the President on the 10th of December to extend his support to the policies of the President. She represents the United People's Freedom Alliance as a member of the Mahajana Eksat Peramuna.
Have we forgotten?
In July, Arjun Aloysius handed over his second Apple iPhone, claiming the phone he used in 2015 was damaged in Singapore. Aloysius refuses to give iCloud password, claiming he could not remember it. Thereafter, the Aegis department reported Aloysius attempted to log into his Apple account through his wife's phone. Aloysius was ordered not to tamper or alter data on his Apple device. Chief dealer of PTL, Nuan Salgado, said CEO Kasun Palisena instructed him and senior IT executive of PTL, Sachit Devatantri, to identify telephone conversations that would be harmful to PTL and delete them. The first instance of deletions was after the central bank issued notice in November 2016 on PTL, restricting its trading activities. Another instance was in March 2017, when the Commission requested call recordings of specific dates for the investigation. Again, in July 2017, when the Presidential Commission was investigating the bond issue. Perpetual Treasuries had tampered with the telephone conversation recording system installed by Metropolitan Communications Private Limited.
Have we forgotten?
The tenure of the Presidential Commission of Inquiry into the bond issue will end in 16 days. The people await the decision of the Bond Commission.
The 2015 and 2016 bond scams, the biggest theft in Sri Lankan history. Who should be held responsible for this grand theft? Who caused millions and millions in losses to the country's state banks? Who stole EPF money, the wealth you earned with your own sweat and blood? Who bowed down to fraud and corruption and allowed this massive theft? The entire nation awaits the final report of the Presidential Commission of Inquiry on the issuance of Treasury bonds. The first to expose the bond scam, News First.
You're watching News First. Still on local news, the working group on arbitrary detention established by the Human Rights Commission presented its findings today. The observations will serve as the basis of forthcoming deliberations between the 5 members of the working group at its sessions in Geneva next year.
The preliminary findings of the Working Group of the United Nations on Arbitrary Detention was presented during a media briefing held in BMICH, Colombo today. Now, they came into the country on the 4th of December this year at an invitation extended by the government. Now, this will be followed by a report which will be submitted at the 39th session of the Human Rights Council on September 2018. The working group visited over 30 places of deprivation of liberty, including police stations, prisons and rehabilitation centres.
In particular, we found that there's an urgent need for reform to address problems including the excessive use of remand and pre-trial detention, a lack of effective alternatives to detention, an outdated legal framework and reliance on confessions, often extracted under torture, duress or coercion. Court proceedings are affected by excessive and unjustified delays, while suspects remain in detention indefinitely. And in particular, the working group urges the Government of Sri Lanka to repeal the Prevention of Terrorism Act 1979 as one of the key enablers of arbitrary detention for over 4 decades in this country.
The daughter of former Navy spokesperson Commodore DKP Dasanayake arrived in BMICH Colombo to hand over a written complaint to the UN Working Group on Arbitrary Detention today. DKP Dasanayake was arrested by the CID in connection with the abduction of 11 youth.
I came here to hand over a complaint regarding my father. These special delegates came to Sri Lanka to investigate about arbitrary detainees. My father fought for country, so I don't know why they didn't spare like 5 minutes to come to prison hospital and attend to military heroes. They said there are thousands of people who are missing and they should attend equally to all the people, and they just asked me whether it's a LTT, this is regarding an LTT person, and then I said no, it's about military, and then after that everything changed.
The government's tight finance policies and the scrutiny by International Monetary Fund may affect the construction of the Grand Hyatt. Reports reveal that the government may even end up selling the project mid-construction.
The Mirror Business reports that a contractor involved in the construction under the condition of anonymity said construction of the Grand Hyatt is now going at a slower pace. The article notes that the discussions have taken place with Canville Holdings Private Limited, the state-owned holding company of the hotel, to further slow down the construction due to financial difficulties. The 2016 and 2017 budget said that it would dispose of non-strategic enterprises including the Grand Hyatt. The paper notes further that an official at the Public Enterprise Development Ministry said even requests for proposals to dispose of the hotels have not been called for as yet. Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa's Chief of Staff, Gamini Senrath, and 2 others were remanded last month by the Colombo Fort Magistrate for allegedly misusing public funds by illegally investing 4 billion rupees from the 18.5 billion rupees approved by the Cabinet for the Grand Hyatt project. The funds in question had been the allocation for the Grand Hyatt Regency Hotel in Kolpiti to be constructed by Canville Holdings Limited, a company affiliated to the Sri Lanka Insurance Corporation, but had been invested in the Hambantota Hyatt Regency Hotel project. Mismanagement of financial resources during the past regime resulted in the hotel, which could have been completed for 18.5 billion rupees, nearly doubling in cost. In addition, Sri Lanka insurance-owned company Sino Lanka Hotels and Spa Private Limited was forced to pay an Italian contractor over 1,500 million rupees over a decision taken by former Finance Minister Ravi Karunanayake. The contract provided by the Italian company was cancelled by Sino Lanka. The arbitration report filed by the International Chamber of Commerce in Singapore found that the Italian contractor had not deviated from the contract requirements and that in effect they had been misled by their contacts representing Sino Lanka. The tribunal found that the claim of non-performance against Interna was unfounded and not proven.
Well, that's all the news we have for you this evening, but before we go, we leave you with tonight's illustrated news by Asanka Laduhetty. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Saturanga Hapuarachi.
And I'm Rahna Farooq. Thank you for watching. Have a pleasant night.